they'd pay one person to run through Lab of Legends for them. They'd pay another person to grind Arena for them. They'd pay a third person to do Alliance Quest, Alliance War for them.
Hey everybody, hope you're having a good day. Today we have something pretty special. This is going to be a conversation with somebody who is inside a piloting alliance. We're going to get a lot of the details through him, through his story, firsthand, and it's going to give us a pretty nice look at what the culture is at the top of Alliance War, sort of the feeling that everyone has at the top, and sort of what leads them to do stuff like piloting and colluding. But it's a very, very good look at the inside of one of these alliances, and I really can't thank him enough for talking about it so openly with us and sharing it with the community. He reached out to me and asked me to talk about this, and he volunteered to have a conversation with me and post it practically unedited. He said to go ahead and post it unedited, but I definitely wanted to cut it down a little bit, keep it shorter, because we went on for a long time. We went on rambling about all sorts of fun topics, and I just wanted to keep it to Alliance War. So what I try to do in this I guess podcast is identify, a little bit with his mindset, with the mindset of his alliance mates at the time, and kind of see like what's going on inside these alliances. He definitely convinced me that he's for real. This was something that actually happened. This is not made up, and you'll be able to tell that from all the detail that's in here. And he admits to deserving punishment, of course, and actually even goes as far as to say that the punishment that they received was not even enough. So definitely some very honest opinions coming from the guest here, and hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, give it a listen. Yeah, I didn't plan anything formal. I just wanted to chat with you about what you. So you were in what was that alliance again?
Spaghetti Nugget. I was there for well over a year now.
Oh.
So it wasn't something that I joined and just promptly gave my details over. It was kind of it was a weird situation we sort of found ourselves in.
What level were they at when you joined? Were they one of the top alliances?
When I joined, we were floating around the sort of top 150 pretty regularly.
Okay.
And Alliance War wasn't really taken too seriously. If you died and didn't feel like reviving, no one really cared. Because seasons weren't a thing, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, it's nice to get those shards, but the AQ was everything, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, even at the time, AQ was still kind of shit. That definitely needs a revamp.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a quick history is that I started playing October 2015, and a bunch of other guys that I met in my first real alliance in around December. We just sort of grew together and started playing a fair bit. And when Alliance Wars first came out, we all really got into it. And because I'm in Australia, the time zone's really awkward for doing Alliance War and Alliance Quest with the Americans, mainly just due to the bloody linked nodes. They're an absolute pain. The way I see them, they do nothing other than force you to stop and wait for someone else.
Yeah, it's forced coordination.
Yeah, Dungeons had a good approach to the nodes where you pick and choose which node is going to be difficult to take, and it gives you a bit of strategy. No one takes these nodes without them coming down unless it's a really easy node, in which case it doesn't even matter that it's there in the first place. uh, or there's someone new who didn't pay quite enough attention, and they're just a new player getting punished. So I've never been a fan of them, but because of that sort of stuff, it's between about 4 p.m. and 11 for my time that a lot of the Americans sleep. So I'm usually sitting around just waiting for link nodes to go down, and then hoping that people get on early enough where they are that I can clear out the rest before I go to bed. So fairly early on, I found one or two friends that I trusted that we'd share login details for and just do one or two moves here and there.
Yeah.
And then, as that alliance fell apart, a core group of us sort of stuck together and moved amongst various alliances wherever we could. But at the very least, we all stayed in contact. And then, a few of the guys got some lucky breaks, got a bit more powerful accounts than I did. So they moved up a bit earlier. But then, one friend who had been in it was originally MYMB. I can't remember the name of the alliance, but that was the alliance tag. So he'd been there since probably mid 2016. And after that, or after I was looking for a new alliance, I managed to get a spot with him. And then, at one point, because we'd hit a plateau somewhere in the top 50, I think it was, in Alliance War rating, and we just wanted to get easier rewards, we shelled down to Spaghetti Nugget, which I think at the time was like 2,000, 2,300 rating, somewhere around there.
What does that mean? You said shelled down, like
so. This was all before seasons happened. So we left the MYMB alliance, jumped into an alliance that had a lower AW rating, just to basically match up against easier opponents to get free shards. So it's something a lot of high-level alliances were doing at the time, which is why every so often you'd see an alliance with a really high rating just suddenly, disband completely. They'd have one or two people sitting there if they ever needed it back.
Right.
And I'm sure you would have been aware that shelling was something that happened actually a lot earlier than that as well. Like with Alliance Quest, when it used to pay out the top, 115 or so for the tier 4 class, and if you didn't get that ranking, you didn't get anything at all, before the shards came in. So what you'd see alliances doing is they'd get that reward, they'd have that account or that alliance move up to the next bracket, and then they'd change out into another alliance that could compete for that reward again. So they'd basically get that tier 4 class every week.
So they're like flopping in between the rank up reward there.
Yeah, so they'd be getting that class thing every week, and essentially robbing another alliance that was going to be getting it. So
who are these 30 other guys who are down to just sacrifice their own progress like that?
That's the thing. At the time, Command made it really easy. You sacrificed no progress because there wasn't any restriction on ranked rewards when you join an alliance.
Oh, okay.
So that's why Kabam introduced those limitations on the ranked rewards. You had to be in the alliance for a certain amount of time to get them. And initially, I think they made it a little too harsh for the newer alliances, like the people who are sort of just starting out the game. They eventually found a decent balance with that. But yeah, that's why those came about, was because it was getting heavily abused when there wasn't any restriction.
That's right around the time I started getting competitive, I think. When that 8-day rule came in, I remember thinking, what's up with this? Why are these rules coming in? And then I started going on Reddit, and seeing people talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, basically we got used to sort of bending the rules a little as we thought of it back then. And from there, we thought about shelling once again, but I think seasons ended up coming in before we felt that we couldn't compete at that particular level. We were up to sort of 2800-ish rating by the time seasons came in. And we were doing pretty well. I know before seasons, we had a few really bizarre wars because shortly before seasons, there was that brief period where defender kills didn't matter at all.
Right, that was crazy.
So we had one alliance that we were constantly pairing up against, Little Land, and one of the wars we ended with them having 180 deaths, which was ridiculous. But obviously, those deaths didn't matter. It was all about completing it and
diversity.
The diversity. So that was an absolute joke of a stretch of time. But once the seasons came in, suddenly we see massive improvement from all sorts of alliances. We were consistently hitting 50 to 60 deaths before seasons. And our first two wars, we started with that. But against like Little Land, for example, they went from 120 to 180 down to 40 to 50.
Mm-hmm.
So, we initially think, okay, cool, other people are piloting. Yeah, it's pretty much expected. And that, the other part is they're not just using the basic revives, they're using potions and boost and stuff like that. So obviously everyone starts taking it a bit more seriously. Now, one thing with our alliance is for a long, long time, we had a few people who have massive prestige, but in the case of some of those, they never played their own accounts. I honestly don't understand the appeal myself.
I don't either. It's mind-blowing.
They'd pay one person to run through Lab of Legends for them. They'd pay another person to grind Arena for them. They'd pay a third person to do Alliance Quest, Alliance War for them. It boggles my mind. But we had them because their account was ridiculous, their prestige was ridiculous, and nothing was happening to ban someone sharing their account or anything like that. So we never really saw an issue with having someone like that in our alliance. And then in other cases we had like one of the guys in my first alliance, he had two accounts that he was running, and they were both high level accounts. It was just him running both, and he was a fantastic player, but he'd have two different accounts, and I'm sure that might have looked dodgy as well, like one person doing two high level accounts.
Yeah, you've got to be really active to keep up with that.
Yeah. So from the get go, we already had some amount of piloting and whatnot going on. At the very least, for the time zone stuff, there were people just sharing to get nodes while people were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So then from this point, from early in the seasons, it was like progression was pushed very heavily. And what we started to find was that we were getting down to sort of 30, 25, 20 deaths, but pushing beyond that sort of 20 to 25 mark definitely required some of our best players to basically jump on and take the final difficult champ on most paths, plus like the minis and the bosses.
So it was like a natural progression. Like first it was like, okay, we have your account details because it's nice to be able to play with somebody across the world. It's kind of cool to have that community, but we're gonna need to share details. And then eventually it's like, now that this is competitive, do you mind if I just get on? I'm feeling pretty good about that mini boss. and they just
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just took it for you. Or
yeah. Look, it really was. I can't speak for other alliances, but I know that for us, it did have that sort of natural progression into it. Um, and then, like, the frustrating thing was, by the end of season one, we sort of, or partway through the mid-season break, we'd sort of seen that, um, the writings on the wall for piloting,
mm-hmm.
um, and playing um, throughout the mid-season. Like, me personally, I'd done every fight on my path except the last one, and the last one I would do once every other war. Like, if it was a champ that I wasn't comfortable soloing,
Mm-hmm.
then I'd give it away. Because towards um, the last six wars, we had a really good shot at hitting master, and I was perfectly happy at that point. Basically just giving my account to someone else to guarantee a solo on a particularly difficult fight, rather than risk the rewards for everyone in my alliance.
Yeah, yeah, because there's other people. Once a few people are willing to do it, then if you're not, you're kind of the odd man out. You're potentially
Yeah,
ruining it for the rest of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
but at that same token, like, I don't want to sit here and say that, oh, look, I'm making up excuses. Like, at the end of the day, I absolutely let my account get piloted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it's I could have very easily just gone, look, I'm not comfortable with this, and moved to a different alliance.
Right.
It's everyone in the alliance knew what was going on and was comfortable with piloting. We definitely deserved to have the alliance get punished like it did. But yeah, coming into the start of season two and like in the mid-season, um, the people who had never played their accounts, or almost never, and the others who had had their accounts almost entirely piloted since about halfway through the season, they were struggling.
Right. They were trying to do it on their own.
Yeah. And, we were getting back up there in deaths. Like, we were hitting sort of 30 to 35, and we were getting crushed.
Which isn't bad. Like, let's be clear. That's good for most of us. We're happy.
It's not bad,
Yeah.
but
it's not that master bracket deaths count.
At this point, our alliance is in the top 25 in terms of AW rating. So we were getting matched up against MMX, Core, ISO 8A, pretty much every other war. Like,
ouch.
We would constantly see, war matches of sort of plus 90 points, because, we'd get matched up against the top five. So against those sorts of players, even when those guys aren't piloting, they can still clear in under 15 deaths. They can destroy everyone. And, their defense is stacked as well. So, I think even if we didn't get caught, we probably would have had to have shelled to a lower tier alliance to keep up anyway, just because, when you're starting the season that high in alliance rating, you're only going to win about 50% of your wars if you get good matchups on half of them.
There's nowhere to go but down.
Yeah, so look, honestly, in the end, Kabam actually did us a favor by pretty much forcing the alliance to go under. The penalty they gave was large enough that it meant that we had no shot at Master, and realistically no shot at Platinum 1, because they docked the results of an entire war. So that meant we lost about 1.5 million points, which would take 4 wins to overcome that deficit, assuming every other alliance loses those 4.
Right.
It's a massive amount of points to try and make up.
But a lot of people were saying that on Reddit too, that it's a punishment, but for the guys getting matched up against those type of alliances like yours, they were quite outmatched, going up
Well,
against people who were just playing in Master a week ago, and
we didn't end up having any other wars once we got that punishment. I know some of them would have, but yeah, ours we didn't.
okay.
We basically as soon as that hit, the leadership announced that half of them had a spot moving with another group, and those of us who didn't already have a spot basically had to find our own place. So Kabam gave that punishment out really early in the season, and it was a huge benefit to everyone who got that punishment, honestly, just to know that, okay, Kabam's definitely watching this, but you've done it so early in the season that I can jump into another alliance and not really get punished.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they took away our alliance name, but that was about it. I'm comfortably in a new alliance that's competing for Platinum 1. One of my friends is in a Master Alliance right now, and there's a few others. Oh, the rest of the group who had a spot, they're already in Platinum 1. So we really lost basically nothing except for a week's worth of, the Alliance rewards, which is nothing at the end of the day. It's all about the Alliance seasons.
Right now, they're nothing. Yeah, they used to be quite useful, but a few shards, a couple Alliance quests, maybe some glory you're missing out on.
Yeah, it's very little.
No. So, man, that's crazy. So when you're up in Master, like playing against those guys, how do you know when one of them is piloting? Is it something that's sort of like talked about, or is it like, what are the signs? Do the leaders just tell you like, hey, watch out, man, we got our best guy on the behind the wheel?
No, not quite that much. I know, from my case, because I was never an officer. I used to be an officer over a year ago in various other alliances. I got sick of that sort of leadership stuff. I found it much more enjoyable to just sit as a member and not have to worry about the majority of stuff. So when it came to who was piloting, a few of our top guys, our pilots essentially, they pretty much knew who the pilots were for most of the top alliances. There was one alliance who I think finished 4th or 5th last season. And to their credit, they never piloted, they never did anything dodgy. And those guys were unbelievably powerful. We when we faced them, it was with a couple of wars to go, and we had to get the win. So for that particular war, outside of the first 2 or 3 fights, we just gave the reins to our pilots, and our pilots cleared their defense with 10 deaths.
Wow!
And their alliance, without piloting, cleared ours with 12. So, it just goes to show that, sure, we had our absolute best players beat them, but overall, their average, the average skill across their 30 players was phenomenal.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I probably should refrain from mentioning like specific names, and because people down in like the public, we don't really know which alliances are breaking the rules or not. We don't know. We just suspect. We just assume almost that if you're at the top, it's bad.
Yeah.
Even though there's probably some good alliances, probably quite a few that are doing it legit.
And there are some really strong alliances as well. One thing that sort of irks me a little is that Kabam hasn't been fair with their punishments. In some cases, like for the top alliances that know they're piloting, we get dinged by Kabam, and it's really as simple as going, okay, look, we all know we've been piloting. Let's break up, find our own way. And if you guys want to make sure that this doesn't happen again, just don't pilot. Simple as that. for the lower alliances that might have two people sharing an account because they're friends and they've got awkward time zones, but they haven't mentioned that to anyone else. If it's just two people who share an account like that, the rest of the group's not going to know. So when they're getting dinged by Kabam for cheating in Alliance War, and they lose rating and they lose points, all that happens is their leadership gets a message saying, someone in your group has broken the terms of service. And if no one owns up to it, they've got no idea who's causing it, why, or how they can stop that happening in the future.
Yeah, that is strange why they won't tell the leadership who it is. Is there any idea why they keep that information secret?
Well, as they have stated, it is part of their privacy policy that they're not allowed to give the names of other members. But what they should be doing is handing out, say, a 3-day ban. And if someone's just not logged in for 2 days, you can figure out pretty quickly, okay, it's that person, I need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And look, a ban isn't the end of the world. And I'm glad that Kabam have finally started giving out bans. Because, I don't know if you remember the fiasco last August around some people getting a glitch where every time they complete a quest, they get the master.
I do remember that. That was insane. People having just thousands and thousands of shards.
Yeah, and I got to say, I had that glitch and I abused the shit out of it. Because prior to that, Kabam had set no precedent whatsoever that anything bad would happen to people who abused their glitches.
Right.
One of the earliest glitches I remember was well before signature stone crystals were a thing, or the max sig abilities. So if you had a Sig 99 champion and you got a duplicate, you got nothing extra. You just got the shards. And the glitch was that on a particular featured crystal, if you hit a Sig 99 champion, it would re-roll until it got one that you didn't have. So there were a few people who had every 2-star at Sig 99 and every 3-star at Sig 99. So they were just popping these feature crystals and guaranteeing a 4-star out of it for 150 units.
Wow, that's crazy.
They abused the shit out of that, got every 4-star to max sig, and Kabam just turned around and said, yeah, look, we've found the error, we've fixed it, we've determined that there's very few people who were able to benefit from this, so we're not doing anything. And, from then the lesson was, okay, if there's a glitch, abuse it and see what Kabam does. And I'm glad that I got banned for 2 weeks for abusing the rewards glitch, because it set a really good precedent of, okay, there's a major glitch, but don't abuse it too much. Or, don't abuse it, basically, because we will come down on you.
Yeah, it teaches you a lesson for when the rewards are even better. You don't want to miss out,
Yeah, exactly. And with bannings, they definitely need to be a lot more consistent. For something like what our alliance did, honestly, everyone should have gotten banned for a week, and then go from there. Or alternatively, just drop that points loss really close to the end of the season, so that we can't just scramble into a new alliance and everything's fine.
Yeah, kind of make everyone wonder whether their Kabam's onto them or not, until the last day. And then it's like, well, surprise, we've been watching you this whole time.
Yeah. So, Kabam certainly can improve a lot there. Overall, there are definitely some good alliances near the top. one of the other things that Kabam did that frustrated me was they gave massive favoritism to MMXIV last season because they kicked up a huge stink about not being able to match. I think it was twice in the end.
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row, they only had 2 wars. And yet, early in the season, like we faced an alliance that had exactly the same happen to them. Like they missed out on 2 wars, and we thought, okay, these guys are platinum 2 or platinum 3. They're really low, but they look really strong. Like let's see how they go. And they destroyed us, and they never got any points readjustment from Kabam. And I know that they weren't the only other alliance to miss out. So it's
no, we also missed one this season. We had we had like all the officers submitted tickets, and I went back. I banged my head against the wall for like 5 or 6 replies, but they get back to you in like 10 minutes usually, with just some response that just says nope, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't have the
it's
patience
super
for
shitty. It's such a bad precedent that they set that they will give one alliance favoritism and not care about the rest.
Yeah, and on top of all of it, it's just like back then when all this started, like over a year ago, the game was less competitive. There was the best place to find your 5-star shards and tier 2 catalysts was Labyrinth. And that's single player mode. I understand some people piloted that, but it doesn't really affect the rest of the population, So now the only way to do anything is to be in alliance. Like they've really focused on alliance stuff.
Yeah, and they've only focused on half the alliance stuff. Like the 3-day events are still fairly outdated. The summoner advancement rewards are pretty outdated.
Yeah.
The 1-day events especially are just a joke.
The 1 day, the ones with the 100 loyalty and the 500 battle chips.
Yeah, like the dual targets and
we don't even do those anymore.
Like needing 6,000 points or something for questing. One person will get that in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They really need to revamp everything except Alliance War. Like Alliance War is in a really good competitive spot. It does need a bit closer attention with regards to punishing the high level alliances that are piloting and doing other stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna make it competitive, you do have to be ready to enforce rules. Otherwise, no one's gonna take your quote unquote sport seriously if there's no rules.
Yeah.
So they gotta. It's tricky though. How do they figure out who's doing this? It's not just the piloting either. There's the big thing this week was the whole rigged match.
Oh man!
Did you see that? Do you know?
Yeah,
like, people are saying that's less than worse. Or less than piloting. Like piloting's worse, but I don't know. It's hard.
So the way I look at it, piloting is absolutely worse to me, because you're giving an unfair advantage during your war over the other alliance.
That's true.
This collusion thing here, if they didn't collude, NY718 almost certainly would have won anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't impact the end result.
But let's take the devil's advocate position here, because you could say, on one hand, at least I'm getting beat by a person, right? Someone is spending their resources and getting down into the mud with me. It's only one person, but it's someone. In the other case, these are top alliances that are basically saving their resources and basically doubling up. So they're saving all their resources as well as gaining the alliance war rewards for the win. I don't know. I could argue both sides. I think I don't know which one's worse, but I can see your point that the piloting is definitely more blatant. Like it's more like extreme. Like you're really not even gonna play the game. You're just gonna sit and watch someone else do it. But at the same time, fighting 2 stars and more, that's not playing either. You're not playing Alliance War at that point. You're just moving.
Oh no, not at all. And I will say there's a huge difference between both sides placing a 2-star defense so that you just walk through the opponents and you guarantee one of them gets a win because one side places less diversity. That stuff's all prearranged. The more egregious one is where one side places normal defense, the other side places nothing, and they don't attack. So then the side that places their defense and just goes through a free attack, they get max points for attack and the max points for defenders remaining. That gives them a huge advantage over the rest of the field.
Just by pure points, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good... Jeez, if that happens too? I haven't seen the screenshot of that one yet.
So I believe, I don't think there are any screenshots, but I believe that was what ISO 8A and ISO 8B were accused of doing.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. There was something.
Giving one side max points. The max points for a war is what, not 197 or 198,000, 199, somewhere around there. But if you're adding in the defender bonus, suddenly it's like 230,000 or something, and you factor in the multiplier there. You get at the end of it, you end up with like 60% of a win in bonus points. Both sides definitely benefit from it. The alliance that guarantees himself a win, they get obviously less item use, and they get slightly more points because instead of having 10 to 12 deaths, they have 0. So that's an extra, 8 to 9,000 points plus the multiplier. It's an extra few thousand points for them. The alliance that guarantees themselves the loss, like they go into that agreement knowing that they were going to lose anyway, knowing that a win wouldn't benefit them in the season standings, and that a loss won't knock them out of contention for what they're currently getting.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like if it's all, let's just assume it's all according to the rules. Like that's part of the game. It makes sense if you're trying to maximize points. But but it leaves a bad taste,
Oh yeah, for sure. And the only thing that they get out of it is that they save items, which is obviously a huge advantage this close to the end of the war. Having all those items spread out over 4 wars rather than 5 is a big change.
We're like rotating guys onto reserves when they're running out of items. It's a struggle, and I've spent I track my items just via like their unit price, but I'm over 4,000 now for the season. And I've fairly low death count.
I couldn't tell you how much I've thrown at it this season. It's been getting fairly absurd. Every war, I'm just throwing, a 30% champion boost, 20% attack boost, and making sure I get through with 1 or 0 deaths. But yeah, with the match fixing like that, the really easy solution for Kabam is just hide the plus and minus until attack phase starts.
I was hoping you were going to say that. Yeah, that's the simplest way to do it. You shouldn't know who you're going to face.
I don't understand why they show you that plus and minus. It's not gonna, if you don't know how to use that to figure out what alliance you're facing, or if you're outside the top 100, you can't use it to figure out what alliance you're facing because you don't see other alliances 10 to 20 spots above you or below you. It gives you no information outside of the top 100, and it gives a massive advantage to the people who are in top 100 because they know exactly who they're going to face. So they can collude if they want to. And no one is going to be placing a different defense based on that plus and minus, unless they're colluding. So just take away that plus and minus, and people will place their normal defense, and everyone goes home happy. You won't have that collusion.
Yep. Yeah. It would take away the whole risk of it. You could still potentially get guys avoiding facing each other. Like Top Alliance number 1 says, "Okay, we found our match," so now Top Alliance 2 starts their matchmaking. But I don't know. That's not I could live with that. I think a lot of people could.
From my understanding, that lessened quite a lot when the season started, because for two reasons. One is that you want to guarantee getting in your 3 wars per week. Because I know for a long time, some of the alliances that did that, they only had time to get 2 wars per week, and they were happy getting 2 wars per week to guarantee super easy rewards for them. But with alliances season starting, you want to guarantee 3 awards. You can't wait for 15 other alliances to complete their matchmaking before you start.
True.
And then the other side of it is that if you match up against one of the other top alliances that's going to be competing for those top 3 spots, and you beat them, you've got a huge lead over them. They then have to match you and beat you just to be at parity.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's getting more competitive, which is good. Like, the top guys should be facing each other often and competing for the top spot, and it should change every week. That would be cool,
Yeah, I mean, changing every week is going to be difficult, because if one of them, if the team ranked in first, they start out by beating an alliance, getting 0 kills, and maybe like my war against your guys, had a couple of defenders remaining. Suddenly, you've got slightly above the normal maximum points, and the only way for the second, third, and below to catch up to you is to have the same sort of war happen for them. So,
and someone's got to beat them too. They have to lose a war.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it is difficult for those top spots to really change too much beyond sort of 2/3 of the way into the season. But early in the season, it will change, because those alliances will face each other at some point.
Yeah. So, what's it looking like this season? I mean, what do you think? Like, you think that we're going to see something at the end where they do some point adjustments? I think a lot of people in Plat 1 and probably Gold 1 are probably hopefully counting on it. they're thinking, if some of these guys get knocked down, we might get bumped up.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I really honestly don't know.
I don't know either. They're being a little quiet about it.
Yeah, and it's probably good that they're being quiet. Like, if they're going, look, we'll ban alliances that have broken these 3 rules. We'll deduct them these points with 2 wars to go. The alliances that have broken those rules blatantly, they'll know, okay, cool, we're going to get deducted this amount. We'll lose these rewards. Let's jump ship.
Yeah.
So, them not announcing anything is good, but it will be interesting over the next week to see what happens.
Well, anyway, dude, I think we talked for a while. I'll hit you up if I have any other questions or stuff. But you are really good at articulating yourself.
Thanks.
You covered everything almost like you'd planned it beforehand.
Oh yeah, I've been wanting to. I've always thought that this was just going to be an interesting story to tell. Once all that shit happened at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
There's been so many places, people get fired up about this sort of stuff, and honestly, I think a lot of the people that get fired up, if they were in the same position, many of them might have done the same sort of stuff. It's because it was really just a sort of slow introduction that sped up once the seasons happened. At the end of the day, I was involved in piloting. As simple as that. And our alliance got on super light. Command just really didn't give us a good punishment.
Yeah, fair enough. It's pretty cool to to talk to someone who's willing to just go open, candidly admit that, you know. It's, I think I have a fairly small audience, but the people who do listen, I think, are going to really appreciate the inside information. So
cheers. I can't wait to pop the 6-star basic.
But it refreshed today.
Oh, has it? I haven't had a chance to look.
Yeah, I saw. Let me see. I had it open right here. The basic. Yeah, I've got Bishop and Thor Ragnarok and Void in the real right now. Not the real, but like, you know, the profile images.
The top rises.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, cool. We've got
savage.
Oh, alright. Screw it, shall I just pop 3 now?
It's up to you. Are you actually going to pop one right now?
Yeah, I just popped them.
What'd you get?
Got Bishop.
Oh, God.
Bishop, Yondu, and a second Bishop.
No, you have an awakened 6-star Bishop now?
Jesus, that's disgusting.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Oh my God, what I wouldn't give for that. He's one of my favorites right now.
Here's the screenshot.
He'll be a good defender.